Well, I'm just having too much fun talking. If Mr. Lamborn's there, we'll go ahead and get started. The hour of 12 o'clock having arrived and a quorum now being in order, this subcommittee will come to order. I have a lengthy statement that is required to be read about how we must conduct this meeting. So if you'll all bear with me, go get a cup of coffee. It'll take a couple of minutes to do this, but such is the order. I'd like to welcome the members who are joining today's markup remotely. Those members are reminded that they must be visible on screen within the software platform for the purposes of identifying verification when joining the proceeding, establishing and maintaining a quorum, participating in the proceedings, and voting. Members participating remotely must continue to use the software platform's video function while attending the proceedings unless they experience connectivity issues or other technical problems that render the member unable to fully participate on camera. If a member is participating remotely and experiences technical difficulties, please contact the committee staff for assistance and they will help you get reconnected. And I do not understand how you can do that, possibly since you've lost connection. Nevertheless, you should try. In the case that I lose connectivity, I am designating Mr. Kim, who is present at the hearing room, to take over and chair the rest of the meeting. When recognized, video of the remotely attending members' participation will be broadcast in the hearing room via the television internet feeds. Members participating remotely are asked to mute their microphone, mute your microphone when they are not speaking. Doing so will help to ensure that members' remote technology works properly. Members participating remotely will be recognized for making statements normally. If they want to speak at any other time, they must seek recognition verbally. In all cases, members are reminded to unmute their microphone prior to speaking. Otherwise, we will have to lip read. Members should be aware that there is a slight lag of a few seconds between the time you start speaking and the camera shot switching to you. So take a deep breath, pause, then continue on. Members who are participating remotely are reminded to keep the software platform's video functioning on for the entirety of the time they are attending the proceeding. Those members may leave and rejoin the proceedings, but leave your camera on. If members depart for a short period for reasons other than joining a different proceeding, they should leave the video function on. If members will be absent for a significant period or depart to join a different proceeding, they should exit the software platform entirely, then rejoin if they return. Members are also advised that I have designated committee staff, that's you, Doug, if necessary, to get back in touch. If necessary, mute unrecognized members' microphones. Oh, let me read this again, folks. Members are also advised that I have designated a committee staff member, that's Doug, if necessary, to mute unrecognized members' microphones to cancel any inadvertent background noise that may disrupt the proceeding or any other thing I may not want to hear. Members may use the software platform's chat feature to communicate with staff regarding technical or logistical support issues only. Finally, remotely participating members should see a 5-minute countdown clock on the software platform's display, but if necessary, I will do the nasty work of telling you your time is up and it's time to, well, your time is up. For the purposes of voting, remote members are reminded that they must unmute themselves to vote for voice votes only. I will pause for a few seconds when asking for a yes, aye, and a no vote to ensure that remote members have been heard. If we have a roll call vote, remote members are requested to both say their name and how they vote. Doing so will help ensure that the clerk can properly record your vote. Remote members must be visible to me and others on the screen in order to vote. Remote members who experience connectivity issues or other technical problems that render members unable to fully participate on camera, I am terribly sorry, but you will not be able to vote. So, having done the necessary work of the IT section, it's time for me to deliver my opening statement. which will be an abbreviated version, and without objection, a more complete version will be entered into the record. So this afternoon, we meet to mark up H.R. 6395, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. The readiness mark has been shaped by the bipartisan engagement from all members of the subcommittee and informed by the past 6 months of in-person and remote events that have covered a range of important topics. I'd like to start by thanking Ranking Member Lamborn for his partnership on the subcommittee, for his excellent contribution to this mark. To the members, all of you, for your contributions, as well as the committee staff led by John and Brian for their many hours of work in preparing this mark. The jurisdiction of the Readiness Subcommittee is far-reaching, ranging in topics from civilian personnel, sustainment, logistics, military construction, energy, and environmental policy. With that in mind, I'd like to take just a few moments to provide some highlights of key issues addressed in this mark. Following upon last year's work, the Readiness Mark continues to address the vulnerabilities in installation and energy resiliency, both in response to climate change and to ensure that the department can continue to operate when fuel supplies and utilities are disrupted, and to conserve energy. Last year's NDAA made sweeping reforms in response to concerns raised by military families about the management, oversight, and condition of military family housing. The subcommittee has remained deeply engaged in this issue, and this mark makes additional necessary reforms. Similarly, we build on previous efforts to address PFAS contamination around military installations, and we remain committed to working with the department in an effort to find an alternative firefighting foam. Moving on to sustainment. While the Department of Defense talks a lot about modernization and development of new weapons and capabilities, it is our task. We must ensure that focus always remains on sustainment of these weapon systems, including the older ones. And this mark contains a number of provisions to do just that. Next, the health and safety of our military and civilian personnel remain a priority to this subcommittee, especially in the time of COVID-19. Following a review of a number of fatal ground vehicle training mishaps, this subcommittee is concerned that the department's approach to collecting and reporting vehicle mishap data is insufficient. The readiness mark includes a reporting requirement that will help clarify the responsibilities for collecting and analyzing mishap data and how data is being used to identify the trends that lead to these accidents. The actions the department is taking and the actions the department is taking to standardize the data collection. I want to go back for a moment on COVID-19. We've had a couple of hearings and briefings on this matter. Generally, the military is doing its very best to get ahead of this issue, and I draw the attention of all the committee to the work that's being done in the depots to try to keep these major manufacturing sectors and critically important part of the military readiness up and operating. We will have more to say about that, and I would expect that much of that information, successes and failures, will be available to the general public and to industry around the nation outside of the Department of Defense, a task we'll work on in the days and weeks ahead. In addition to the concerns with ground vehicle mishaps, the committee has identified critical failures and safety issues in the munitions enterprise. We include a number of provisions to address this as well. I want to thank, I think the mark before the members is a good product and reflective of the bipartisan nature of this subcommittee's work. And I encourage my colleagues to support the adoption of the mark. Mr. Lamborn, are you ready? Because with all of that having been said, I now turn to you for your opening comments. Mr. Lamborn.
Thank you, Chairman Garamendi. This afternoon, we begin the process to mark up H.R. 6395, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021. The world is becoming increasingly dangerous, and the challenges to U.S. national security and economic interests continue to grow. The return of great power competition with China and Russia has revealed the need for the U.S. military to invest in new technologies, as our superiority in domains such as cyberspace and precision weapons is no longer guaranteed. At the same time, our ability to meet today's threats, whether it is defeating terrorist organizations, deterring adversaries, or responding to aggression, all depend on today's readiness. We must get this balance right. We owe it to the men and women who serve in uniform and to the civilians and contractors who provide them support. As we consider this mark, I would like to commend Chairman Garamendi for his leadership and for upholding the bipartisan tradition of the Readiness Subcommittee. Our members on both sides of the aisle contributed greatly to this mark, and it reflects their hard work and dedication to the military. Thank you. I also want to thank the staff for their diligence in supporting the initiatives of our subcommittee members and for their hours of preparation to get us to this point. This mark focuses on several areas at the core of military readiness, especially as it pertains to logistics, sustainment, infrastructure, and mission preparedness. I am particularly proud of the following provisions. Requires the Department of Defense to develop a sustainment and logistics strategy and to identify critical capability gaps. Begins the process of recapitalizing our surge sea lift fleet. Codifies the existing DoD Office of Economic Adjustment, which works with communities to manage the Defense Community Infrastructure Program and Defense Access Roads Program. Addresses shortfalls in aerial refueling capacity due to issues with KC-46A fielding and planned tanker retirements. Improves installation and energy resilience for critical infrastructure. Improves accountability and transparency of DoD PFAS releases and ensures that all National Guard forces can access the Defense Environmental Restoration Account. Requires DoD to clarify responsibilities for collecting and analyzing ground and aviation mishap data, standardize data collection, and report on how that data is used to identify trends. And lastly, continues to reform military family housing by requiring a report on environmental hazards in government-owned housing and requiring the DoD to review the feasibility of standardizing performance metrics for privatized military housing. Mr. Chairman, this mark reflects solid bipartisan work by this subcommittee, and I urge our colleagues to vote for its adoption, and I yield back. And I believe you might be muted, Mr. Chairman.
I was muted there for a moment. I think Doug did that to me because I don't remember hitting the mute button. In any case, thank you, Mr. Lamborn.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to say that if you're...
Hearing none. If there's no further discussion, the chair lays before the members the text of the subcommittee mark for consideration. Without objection, the mark is open to amendment at this point. Are there any amendments to the subcommittee mark? Are there any amendments to the subcommittee mark? Hearing none. If not, the question now occurs on the adoption of the mark. So many as are in favor will say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The mark is adopted. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Kim, for the purposes of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee report the mark favorably to the full committee.
The question is on the motion of the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Kim. So many as are in favor will say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. A quorum being present, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Without objection, Members have 5 legislative days within which to submit written statements to the record. So ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make necessary conforming, technical, and clerical changes and to remove from the mark provisions that would cause the mark to refer to other committees or would result in a directional spending, otherwise known as an earmark. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further legislative business before this subcommittee, the meeting is adjourned. Now, you don't have to leave. We could sit here and talk. Tulsi, where are you?